Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you our second FCS Quarterfinal Game of the Week. And this is going to be an absolute battle on Sunday afternoon, guys. We have the 5-1 North Dakota Fighting Hawks taking on the 6-0 unbeaten James Madison Dukes. And guys, this is a battle between what I view really as two very similar teams. And we're going to break down the offense, the defense, and who we have winning this game. So you're going to listen to the numbers and the players and all the stats and realize how similar these two teams are. And that's why this has a chance to be an instant classic on Sunday afternoon. The Fighting Hawks are coming into this game, guys, playing in just their only fourth ever FCS playoff game. Keep in mind that one of them was last week when they took down Missouri State 44-10. A very impressive performance against what was a very hot Missouri State team. You look at James Madison, they are no stranger to the FCS playoffs. They are no stranger to the big games. They are making their 7th straight playoff appearance. 7th straight year they've made the playoffs. They are a national title contender. They're looking to avenge that national title loss from 2 years ago. Looking to get back into the national championship. Of course, the winner of this game, guys, gets the winner of North Dakota State and Sam Houston State, and we just put out an analysis video on that yesterday. So if you haven't checked it out, go look at it. You'll get our winner for that, and who that potential semifinal matchup could be next week. But let's go ahead and take a look at these teams, guys. Again, North Dakota beat Missouri State to get to this point. James Madison beat Virginia Military Institute. VMI beat them 31-24 last week, and that score is a little bit misleading because VMI scored a touchdown with 9 seconds left to make it 31-24. So yes, it was only a win, a touchdown victory, but James Madison played a little bit better than I think that final score indicated. But let's go ahead and take a look at the offenses and the defenses here. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball. We'll start with North Dakota because they are the road team on Sunday. The Fighting Hawks are extremely balanced, and we have broken them down over the course of this spring season. It's been no stranger to us that they are a very balanced and aggressive team. They are very, very aggressive and love to win the games down in the trenches. When you look at the numbers, they're averaging 31.3 points per game, 209.8 passing yards per game, and 197.3 rushing yards per game. You really can't get that much more balance than that. I mean, they have everything they need right there. They can win it through the air, and they can win it on the ground. And I will say that I've been very impressed with their passing game this season. They've been starting a freshman quarterback in Tommy Schuster, who has thrown for over 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns, and just 3 interceptions. So really, if that's any indication, guys, it's that North Dakota football is in very good hands going forward. In the years to come, the Fighting Hawks are in perfect hands with Schuster under center. But I would say that the true leader of this offense, guys, is their running back, Otis Weah. He has 634 yards and 8 touchdowns on the year. And this North Dakota team as a whole has rushed for over 200 yards in half of the games they've played this season. The team has rushed for at least 200 yards in 3 of the 6 games they have played this year. Yes, they're averaging more passing yards per game, but I would venture to say that the Fighting Hawks are more of a run-first team than they are pass-first. When you look at James Madison, guys, they are one of the top teams in the country. They have been all year long. Really, you could say they've been for probably about the past 5-6 years. I mean, really, the Dukes are no slouch. And when you see them on your schedule, you get almost as scared as facing them as I say you would facing North Dakota State. They're also extremely balanced, but unlike North Dakota, I would say they are more run-centric. At least we know that right off the bat. We mentioned that North Dakota would probably want to run the ball first with Otis Weah. With James Madison, it's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. They're a run-first team. They're averaging 251.9 rushing yards per game. 251.9 rushing yards per game to go along with 33.3 points per game. And when you look at the players that are helping James Madison hit these numbers, the players that have helped James Madison get to this point, they're a very selfless team. I will say that. They have so many different playmakers that are stepping up week in and week out to help them get to this point. It starts in their backfield, obviously, with Percy Ajay Obise, who has 491 yards and 6 touchdowns on the year. He's their leading rusher. But right behind him is Juwan Hamilton, who has 449 yards. So 42 yards separate the two running backs here. 449 yards and 5 touchdowns for Hamilton. He had 171 rushing yards in that playoff victory against VMI just last week. So keep in mind, this is a run-heavy team. 2 dominant running backs in their backfield. A team total 309 rushing yards in that playoff matchup last week. So again, the numbers aren't a fluke. It's not like they have one huge breakout game. They are consistently doing this because of the dual threat that they have in their backfield. When you look at their passing game, guys, the numbers aren't bad. They're averaging 199.5 passing yards per game, which is good. But the thing is, when you look at their quarterback play, it's been mediocre at best for a senior quarterback in Cole Johnson. He's thrown for 1,111 yards, so straight ones there. 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 1-to-1 ratio. The one thing he does have going for him, though, is he's completing 64.2% of his passes. So he's been very accurate so far this season. He doesn't really miss his receivers that much. He's just got to cut down his turnovers, and really his numbers aren't, stunning. They're not drop dead. It's because James Madison, again, is a more run-centric team. If it's working for you and you've got 2 guys in your backfield that can take the load off your quarterback, why wouldn't you use them? So Cole Johnson, again, if I'm James Madison, I don't want him having to lead me on a game-winning drive at the end of the game. I don't want that to happen. And they haven't been really in many of those situations all year long because of how great their defense has been and how great the run game has been too. Let's take a look at those defenses. Let's take a look at North Dakota first. The Fighting Hawks are absolute ball hawks. I will say that. The Fighting Hawks are ball hawks. They're allowing just 18.8 points per game and just 125 rushing yards per game. These guys fly, literally fly all over the field and are making big plays, making big stops, and the number that sticks out to me more than anything is the fact they have forced 14 turnovers this season. They have played 6 games, and they have forced 14 turnovers. And that is obviously a reason they've won so many games this year and been one of the more pleasant surprises in the FCS this year. If you can win the turnover battle, you have a pretty good chance to win the game, especially when your offense is as balanced as the Fighting Hawks is. But you look at these numbers here. They're just allowing 125 rushing yards per game. That's a huge key number because James Madison is about doubling that. James Madison is averaging 251.9 rushing yards per game. The Fighting Hawks are allowing just 125 rushing yards per game. Something's going to give there. Either the Dukes are going to struggle or North Dakota is going to get punched in the mouth early and James Madison's going to have their way with them. When you look at North Dakota and over the course of their season how they've fared against teams that have run well, it's evident that however the run defense goes is how the game goes. Take a look at the lone loss this season. The lone loss this season for North Dakota was against North Dakota State. A game they lost by 21. In that game against the Bison, they allowed 316 rushing yards. North Dakota State is averaging over 220 rushing yards per game. They allowed 316 to them. The most rushing yards they allowed outside of that game, the most rushing yards they allowed in the other 5 games, 129. 316 in North Dakota State. The most outside of that was 129. James Madison is up there as one of the more dominant rushing teams in the country alongside North Dakota State. If the Fighting Hawks have a similar performance like they did against the Bison, this game will be over by halftime. If they learn their lesson from the game against the Bison and they force James Madison to win the game through the air, the Fighting Hawks can be in this game until the 4th quarter. That is going to be the major key here. When you look at James Madison and their defense, they are absolutely stingy. They are, without a doubt, I would say up there as one of the top 3 defenses in the entire country. They're allowing just 12.2 points per game. The most points they allowed all year long was 24 last week to VMI. Honestly, when you look at that, VMI was the worst defensive performance statistically from James Madison all year long. They allowed a season high in points, 24. They allowed a season high in passing yards, 286, and a season high in rushing yards, 117. And those aren't bad numbers, guys. James Madison probably should have won that game by 14 had they not allowed a late garbage touchdown. So those were all season highs that came in the playoffs. They still won the game by a full touchdown. And again, it looks a little bit closer than the game really was. That's scary. That's really, really scary. James Madison, the Dukes, they're allowing 156.2 passing yards per game. The number that stands out to me more than anything, though, is they're allowing 57.5 rushing yards per game. No one can move on the Dukes. I know VMI did. They did a pretty dang good job of it, and they still came up short. That's the crazy thing. In what was considered a bad night for James Madison, they still got the win in a playoff game. And the 57.5 rushing yards per game they're allowing, those numbers are unreal. The Fighting Hawks know how to run the ball well. Otis Weah is one of the best in the FCS to do it. But if he can't get going, you're going to force a freshman quarterback, Tommy Schuster, who's played well. I've said he's very impressive. I've been very impressed with him. But you want him to go on the road to James Madison in the FCS quarterfinals and get a win? I don't know if he's going to be able to do it. On top of that, the Dukes have forced 10 turnovers this year. 10 turnovers in 6 games. Both teams do a great job of creating turnovers. This could be a game that comes down to who forces the most. Who wins that turnover battle? And then, of course, which offense can take advantage of those opportunities? That's the million-dollar question here. But no one has been able to move the ball well enough against James Madison. And when they have, they still end up falling short. Makes me wonder if there's any team out there that can go out there, move the ball effectively, put up the points, and walk away with the win against the Dukes. So as you can see, after the way we talked about James Madison's defense, I'm sure you know where our pick is for this game. It's going to be James Madison. It's got to be. This is a very physical game, guys. It was a tough game to pick. But when you look at the numbers, when you look at the way these two teams have played, I look at James Madison and think, man, they've got a chip on their shoulder. They are one of the top 4 seeds to enter this year's playoff. They are looking to avenge that national championship loss. If they can win this game, they will advance to the semifinals where they could possibly play North Dakota State in a rematch of that national championship game from 2 years ago. You know they'd love nothing more than to get their crack at the Bison yet again. And I look at this again, guys. James Madison's defense is just going to play that much better than North Dakota's. And I think if they shut down that run, which they will, I just don't know if Tommy Schuster is there yet to lead the Fighting Hawks to a victory solely through the air. They've got to remain balanced, and if they make them one-dimensional, it's just not going to work out. James Madison knows what they have to do. They go out there. They get the job done. The Dukes advance to the semifinals. They will play the winner of North Dakota State, Sam Houston State. The predicted winner for that is in our previous video. Go take a look at it. But regardless of who they play, we're going to have an instant classic coming your way next week in the FCS semifinals. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. Also, make sure to check out everything down in the description below. We have so much exclusive content for you down there in the description. Our brand new Gridiron Expert podcast, our brand new, semi-brand new Gridiron Expert website, and so many other offers down there to help you get through this college football offseason. So make sure to go give it a look. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.